We are live with Media Monitor, your favorite weekly news review program with me, Alisha Jali. Remember that throughout the show, you can voice your opinions on our topics via Twitter at SA Media Monitor. But first, a very quick look at the leading stories across all media platforms, making headlines at 900 hours across all Central Africa regions. Good morning. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation has officially launched Rivonia struggle stalwart Ahmed Kathrada's book titled The Triumph of the Human Spirit to coincide with the anniversary of the Lily's Farm raid as well as Nelson Mandela Month. Donors at a UN conference in New York have pledged over $3 billion to help 3 West African countries recover from the Ebola epidemic. The UN conference was held as part of global efforts towards eradicating the virus and efforts to rebuild. The outbreak has killed more than 11,000 people across Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone. The Greek Parliament has approved the government's latest proposals aimed at ending the debt crisis. MPs gave the government a mandate to negotiate with the country's creditors. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras earlier admitted that the proposed reforms included actions which were far from his party's election promises, but are still better than the previous ultimatum put to Greece. Let's now have a look at the radio news headlines. Police and taxi associations have agreed to work together to restore calm in Mamelodi, east of Pretoria, following violence sparked by the introduction of auto-pax buses in the area. The SACP has vowed to forge unity within the working class. This, as one of its allies, COSATU, goes to a special National Congress tomorrow amid threats of disruptions and deep divisions. Some of Libya's warring parties have signed an initial agreement to form a unity government and end the fighting. Well, since becoming the second player in ODI history to take a hat-trick on his international debut, Kagiso Rabada has been trending so much on social media. Let's take a look at the tweets now. Arabile Gumete says, RT, I greet you all in the name of Kagiso Rabada and Serena Williams. Hashtag excellence. Sean Pollock, former teammate, best bowling ODI debut, best SA ODI bowling performance. One of only 2 people to get a hat-trick on debut. Congrats to Kagiso Rabada. And of course, AB de Villiers, another teammate there. Kagiso Rabada, you beauty. The future is here. Hashtag Protea Fire at Kagiso Rabada 25. Strong chase now, men. All the media experts joining us this morning. Let's welcome Ms. Runlani Baloyi, SABC Radio News Editor, and Mr. Sichaba Gankosi, News Editor at the Business Report. A very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for joining me on Media Monitor.
Thank you, Alicia.
All right, let's have a look at today's newspaper headlines. The City Press is leading with a story about factionalism hits Limpopo, the ANC. The Sunday Times there, South African authorities interested in buying highly sophisticated spyware. And also in the same page, SACP leader Blaine Nzimande hits back at South African judges. The Sunday Independent there, COSATU's Special National Congress to expose opposition against the dominant group within the Federation. Looking at the Sunday Tribune there, the Democratic Alliance apparently is gunning for KwaZulu-Natal province. The Weekend Argus is looking at the ANC to probe young South Africans who visited Israel as the party's representatives. And looking at the Nigerian Daily Trust now, Boko Haram militants continue to kill dozens in Borno State. And to our neighbors there in Lesotho, the Sunday Express, it says Lesotho Army Commander Maparanga Mahao laid to rest. All right, a very good morning. Let's now have a look at the City Press and the front page there. The front page reads, Limpopo ANC wants to boot the Speaker. Well, last week we read about the declining numbers in Limpopo for the ANC. This week, another article insinuating further internal factions when it comes to the leadership structures in the province. Now, this article deals with Provincial Speaker Miriam Rabadwa, who's apparently been bamboozled into resigning, but she won't go so quietly. Now, I want to know, what should we be reading about as we head into the local government elections? Is this what we should be getting? Rulani, let's start with you.
I think we should, when we go back to July 2013, when the current premier was appointed, the ANC was saying that they believe that he will bring back stability into Limpopo, because remember the issues of the provinces, departments being put under administration. There were a lot of things that had gone wrong, and the leadership of then Premier Kasar Matale were blamed for things having gone wrong. So I think the ANC is facing another challenge, because they thought Mr. Matavata would be able to unify the province, and now there's a problem here with the speaker being told by SMS that she must resign because they want to put someone else in her position. So ANC in Limpopo seems to be far from settling in.
Look, I mean, with the ANC in Limpopo, the one name that you should not lose sight of is Julius Malema. Julius Malema was a phenomenon in the ANC in Limpopo, and when the trouble started and the previous premier was removed, people started maybe purging those that were thought to be close to Julius Malema. And what you see today is actually a result of what happened 2 years ago, or in 2011. And I doubt that we're going to be seeing any stability soon, because you've got entrenched tendencies within the ANC, but you also have this phenomenon called Julius Malema.
All right, let's leave it there now and have a look at, still on the same paper there, City Press, PRASA trains don't fit. Now, a very concerning article about the safety of PRASA's new fleet. Now, according to the story, even PRASA's own engineers had warned that these could pose a very significant safety hazard when it comes to poorly maintained railways in certain parts of the country. Now, this is extremely concerning. Do you think that the public deserves more than an incomprehensible graph the commuters need to know, but not on page 2, Chab?
Look, I mean, I think what we need to be told is how is PRASA going to fix, because there are some poorly maintained rail lines in South Africa. And those are in mostly far-flung areas, not your Joburg, where there's everything, there's high volumes of traffic. In those areas that seem to be forgotten, you need to have a proper maintenance plan. 2, we need to know how much it would cost PRASA and South Africa to maintain those. And thirdly, we need to, perhaps somebody needs to take us into their confidence and tell us that, yes, maybe there was a mistake made with the purchase of the trains, of the locomotives from Spain. And if so, what is then going to be done to rectify that? Because you're left with no option. Either you pull out of the deal, which is close to R1 billion, rands, and then you pay some part of it, and you've already purchased the train, so you throw 1 billion rands, nearly 1 billion rands into the train in a country where there's so much that needs to be done. I mean, we're talking about a state that wants to be expansionist in its approach. We're talking a state that wants to be developmental. So you cannot afford to lose 1 cent of that money, because expansionist means spending more money on the basic needs. So when you take this 600 million rands, you throw it and you say, life goes on, don't work like that.
No, but proper research should be done prior to attaining such expensive things, I suppose. Let's move on there, Rulani. I want you to comment on this. City Press's page 4 says, SACP members want election battle. Now, things are heating up here. The SACP's National Congress ended yesterday, and coming out of that are many stories. This one deals with how ordinary members of the SACP actually want the party to end its reliance on the ruling party and maybe contest the next elections on its own. alone. And this became a huge part, apparently, of the debates during the weekend. How important is this to both the ruling party and its alliance, Rulani?
I think the SACP has been saying this for years, that they want to run for elections on their own. And they know that, I mean, they're saying that their numbers have grown from 150,000 to more than 200,000 at the moment. But they, as things stand, they are happy with being members of working with President Zuma, and they feel that President Zuma has been taking the SACP seriously. And one of what we read, their concern is that they are not sure who the next president is going to be. If it's going to be Deputy President Ramaphosa, they have a problem because they think he cannot be trusted, that he will look after the SACP members like President Zuma has done. Most of them are ministers, some of them are deputy ministers, and it's just a matter of worry. But the issue of them wanting to go for elections alone, they've been talking about it, and I don't think it's something they would really action sooner.
All right, let's move on to the City Press's page 10. There it says, girls forced to say I do. Shocking statistics there by UNICEF reveal that at least 7% of women in South Africa were in a civil union before the age of 18. And this mostly happened in rural areas where it is sometimes seen as a norm because the spouses, according to the study, average between 8 to 20 years older. Sitaba, ukutwala, traditional purposes, poverty issues, whatever reasons, this is just not right. Trauma and suffering endured by these young women.
It's scary. In fact, we should all be concerned. One, because we use traditions. We use what defines us as a people or what defines Sichaba as Umzulu. To do things that aren't consistent with the new times or the times that we live in. Our constitution is very clear that for a child who's younger than 16, it's a no-go. And the sad part is that most of the people who marry these girls who are young as 8, some of them 14, are actually men who almost twice their age. So
older.
It's not like you're dealing with a situation where a 17-year-old boy would say, I want to marry this 16-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with a 48-year-old male who would have seen a 16-year-old, and simply because, again, you're dealing with the economics of power, that man would have resources probably to talk the parents into it. And then the parents would make sure that the girl, with or without her consent, becomes part of the arrangement. I've got girls, and I worry when I see such stories because it makes me feel that maybe even my kids aren't as safe as I want them to be.
Yeah. Chaba, and we get to look at that actually in our next paper. We look at the death review of children who are in the next paper as well. But let's first congratulate Miss Serena Williams for a win at Wimbledon. And of course, she's on the front page of City Press, the oldest female to win the Wimbledon. So let's go in now into the Sunday Times. And it starts there. Of course, it has the photo there of Miss Serena Williams on the front page. And then our story revealed SA spies scary shopping list. Well, WikiLeaks has done it again. This time, according to Sunday Times, a massive security breach by hackers has provided a rare glimpse into how the South African government authorities showed an interest in buying highly sophisticated spyware, which could be used illegally to obtain information on ordinary citizens. Now, should we be scared? How far can the government go as far as looking into potential dangers or threats into the country's security, Roland?
Personally, I take this very seriously. We would have to go back to, you and I will have to meet at the street corner if we want to discuss very serious, delicate, confidential business. Because I'm not sure if I send you an email, how safe it is. I'm not sure if our phone calls will be safe, because it looks like this technology can access anything about anybody at any time. So we have to go back to the times where you just meet elsewhere. I mean, we might not even be safe in our own homes. Some people's homes have been bugged. But technology, it's so real. And spying, it happens in a lot of countries. Sometimes you won't know about it until authorities tell you that we have been looking into your affairs, whether financial, whether personal, whatever it is. But it's a very unsettling story to read, to know that people are even asking for to get into other people's Gmail accounts to know what has been going on there.
Sichaba, should we be scared?
Yes. In fact, what is even more scarier is once the information is collected, how is it going to be used? Because in most instances, we know the other world of spies is a world that is beyond ordinary South Africans.
And even before that, who issues the order for that information
supposed to be the
collected?
Naturally or constitutionally, it would have been a judge in most instances, and they would have to provide him with convincing arguments on why you should be monitored.
That's what I would think.
But now, if they can do it as they like, it means we have to go back to 1985 when people operated underground. It means when we have to have this discussion in this studio, perhaps we need to meet at the car park, discuss everything that is sensitive and come here and sing the official parrot tune. That's what we need to do.
We need our own Lily's farm.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there on that story and move on now. On page 12, it says they revealed a rising number of kids abused and murdered. Now, in relation to that story about the girls being abused, in another revelation today, Sunday Times reveals that a child death review study was conducted on children that ended up at the morgue in Durban. Now, the findings were 32% of all the unnatural deaths were due to homicide, and more than 3/4 of those who died was because of abuse, and they were under the age of 5 years old, with 28% killed in car accidents. Now, these are very shocking stats. Where are we failing our children?
I think in South Africa, the problem is that we still have a lot of parents, or in some instances, a lot of young people who have children before they are ready to look after them. Or maybe you have a mother who has a child and they have a stepfather involved, because most of these children, they suffer in the hands of people who are supposed to love them in one way or the other. And people are bitter, people are angry, and they take it off on the child. And I've heard people saying, if you don't want that child, why don't you leave them at an orphanage or somewhere else? And we're a very confused society, and when it comes to looking after our children, and we're far from getting it right. Every second week you hear of a mother and a stepfather, or the other way around, where they've been convicted of killing or abusing a child to the extent that the child dies. And it's something that we as a country, we need to start asking ourselves, the children that we bring into the world, are we ready to look after them? What is it that we should be doing instead of inflicting? How do you inflict pain on a defenseless child?
Let's leave it there, Rulani, and look at the Sunday Independent. Of course, linking us to that is Miss Serena Williams on the front page. There again, another amazing picture of her as she took the Wimbledon title yesterday. Now, the front page of the Sunday Independent, COSATU's 6 million rand caucus gamble. The battle of unifying the embattled Federation COSATU seems to be the biggest focus now for the leaders of the different factions. And, quote, it is not for a united front, but for a united COSATU, as they go into their special national congress, which kicks off tomorrow's chap.
I think what is important is no longer the fact that they're going to a special congress. It's a given. It will take place. They will have discussion. But what happens beyond? Because you still have at least 360,000 metal workers who are outside COSATU, and you have a voice in COSATU that say people should be in COSATU. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, should be in COSATU. But beyond that, we are seeing a situation where the battle lines seem to be clearly drawn between your manufacturing unions like NUMSA and your civil unions, like the most powerful faction in COSATU at the moment, or the most powerful faction within COSATU, seem to be led by NIHAU and SATU. And those are massive unions. And with civil servants, you also have this monopoly of somewhat of a discussion, because in the civil service, most people would have a metric plus education. So they're able to influence discussions. You won't be able to be in the same room with mine workers who come from far-flung areas, who have very little education, and who are supposed to engage on complex issues such as the alliance, issues such as socialism, what it means for them. Maybe they might have an understanding, but who would have the monopoly of influencing debates? And this is what is happening in KwaZulu.
All right, let's leave it there now and focus on international business news. The Greek MPs win support for the bailout. That's on page 11 of the Sunday Independent. Well, Alexis Tsipras has done it. Well, almost, it seems. He's won backing from the lawmakers yesterday for a painful reform proposal aimed at getting a new bailout. Now, the issue here is very interesting that many people are saying he drafted the very same terms he once called terrorism and blackmail. Relani, let's start with you.
I think, for me, the issue about Greece, Sichaba and I were talking about it as we're sitting outside, is that it's all about, at the end of the day, we see politics, Eurozone politics playing out themselves here. But at the end of the day, people are suffering. I mean, 60 euros a day is equals to about 130 rand a day. This is how much you can get if you are lucky, of course. I mean, people are being affected by not being able to go to, the banks are not working. So the whole system has literally collapsed. So let's see, today there's another meeting with the Euro finance ministers to see how they are actually going to help Greece sort out its problems as they are.
So, you're the businessman here. Tell us.
Yes.
No, look, I mean, you're dealing with a situation where Alexis Tsipras is torn between a rock and a hard place. You have a far-left party which won the constitution on the base, which won the elections on the basis of left-wing politics. And in all left-wing parties, the IMF is declared as an enemy number one. So you would not have these austerity measures if you left-wing. But now that the banking industry seems to be collapsing, as Roland was saying, if you are allowed to withdraw about 800 rands a day, it means that the government is scared that if it allows people to withdraw more, people may actually take money out of the country. So you would have this massive capital flight, which will then put pressure on the markets. And then you've got these linked pressures, your inflation, your rates, and that leads to a kind of a crisis. So now you've got a government that was elected on a popular mandate, and it went back. To be fair to it, you're dealing with real democracy in Greek. When the IMF said we're going to have austerity measures, Tsipras said, let me go and get a new mandate from the people, and they said no.
Let's leave it there. Well, let's hope that they try and apply with the newly formed BRICS Development Bank.
Maybe they must approach the BRICS Bank.
That's exactly what we're saying there. Well, we're going to take a quick ad break, and when we return, we discuss some of the stories of the week. One of these stories is the Cape Town High Court ruling on Garnishee orders. Please take a look at this clip.
The emolument attachment orders issued against the 2nd to 16th applicants in favor of the 4th to 16th respondents and set out in Annexure A to the Notice of Motion are declared to be unlawful, invalid, and of no force and effect.
It is in your hands to make of our world a better one for all.
From humble beginnings, this selfless icon altered the history of the world, freed a country, and united a nation. He taught us humility and forgiveness. To the world, he is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. But to us, he is simply Tata Madiba.
We're back with your favorite show, that's Media Monitor. If you've just joined us, our media experts today are Ms. Rulani Baloyi, SABC News radio editor, and Mr. Sichaba Gankosi, news editor at the Business Report. Now, these are the stories that are currently making headlines. Consumers breathed a sigh of relief when the Western Cape judge ruled this week that Garnishee orders on wages of the poor are unlawful. All right, what are your views about this judgment, Rulani?
I'm happy. I'm happy because, you know, sometimes people sign things that they don't know what the implications are going to be. And a lot of people who these Garnishee orders are made against is people who are poor. You go to a furniture shop, you buy this, you can't pay it back, you have a clothing account, you owe money at African Bank or any other bank. So at the end of the day, you take home about 200 Rand. And then when you go to your payroll and ask what's going on, they tell you all those people that you owed have taken back their money. And I think actually it's unlawful. And that's why we're saying that as a country, there has to come a time where our laws protect the poor from practices like this. Because a lot of people, public servants, if you speak to them, they will tell you they don't take home more than 1,000 Rand because of Garnishees, things that they forgot about a long time ago. Actually, I think Garnishee orders should be done away with.
Rulani, look, why don't you say this needs to promote proper spending habits, of which we know the South African majority does not adhere to those standards?
But that's true. I mean, the World Bank is saying that South Africa is one of the highly indebted nations in the world.
We're following Greece on its heels.
Not yet.
Look, I mean, to me, the judgment means that the financial services sector has been brought into some form of accountability. Because if you tell a person who works in a farm about a fine print in the loan that they took, you're basically saying that person must read literally every word before they sign. But if you are desperate for money and you go to a financial services provider now, and you just want the money now, they give it to you. They don't bother about the fine print. And beyond that, you get court officials, people like court registrars, your sheriffs taking Garnishee orders against your ordinary people. The ruling basically say, now if I owe a loan shark an X amount of money, that loan shark will need to go before a magistrate and convince the magistrate that they've tried everything to retrieve their money, and I be given a chance to go back to the magistrate and say, perhaps I admit that I took the money, but instead of them wanting me to pay 800 and be left with 99 rands after everything has been taken from my salary, then I can be able to negotiate a better rate that will be able to look after the debt that I owe, but also make sure that my kids and my family is catered for. So it's kind of like an equitable arrangement, and Judge Desai needs to be praised for it.
But there's debt review processes and debt mediation before you get garnished, remember. So, but let's leave it there for now and move on to our next story. The Zero Tolerance on Initiation Debts campaign has yielded very little, if any, results. Already, the death toll for the current initiation season stands over 20. Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance, Obed Bapela, is in the Eastern Cape to assist traditional leaders and other stakeholders involved in this old age practice to address the current challenges. Now, the Eastern Cape is the worst hit province in terms of fatalities. We've seen awareness campaigns and partnerships being formed between government and traditional leaders, but the problem still persists every single season. We see initiation. Rulan.
I think it's the same script every season. You know, we'll do our with illegal initiation schools. Of course, that's where most of the boys dies. But even in some legal initiation schools, I think maybe our cooperative governance department has to find a different way of working with traditional leaders. I mean, there were suggestions that they will bring people from hospitals, doctors from hospital for the surgeries themselves, to proper surgeons to perform the surgeries. And also there's issues of malnutrition, punishment. Some of the boys are being beaten up, they are not being fed, and anything can go wrong with a lot of these boys. I mean, this morning there's a story that an ex-prisoner has ran away, who has disappeared with about 80 initiates. This guy was put in jail for running an illegal initiation school. Now he's on parole. He's kidnapped about 80 boys. So it's people, maybe our chiefs in our areas are not taking more responsibilities. Because when I grew up, what we were told is that the chief is the one who decides that this year we're going to have the initiation school. You don't do it every year.
Roland, just to get in there was actually a call to criminalize the running of illegal schools, but we haven't seen much of that, Chaba, have we?
Yeah.
Look, I mean, initiation is a very sensitive issue in South Africa. Remember that there are people who believe in it, who swear by whatever is sacred to them, that for you to come of age and be declared a man, you have to go through that. Now, you have to respect that. But I think our people also need to understand and appreciate that culture is not static. Culture is something that gets changed and influenced by times.
Evolves with time.
I mean, in the past, they did not have a culture of reading. But when I come to the office, the first thing I do is I read newspapers so that I know what is happening around me. With the initiation schools, that's the same problem. You need to marry modernity with culture. You need to involve certain people who've got some level of medical understanding, because it's really a scandal that on average every year you get about 50 able-bodied young men who will either die in initiation schools or will be left deformed for life. Now, you know, we need to find a balance, whether it's between government and traditional leaders, but we all need to appreciate that while the custom is respected and everyone knows that certain people have to go through it to come of age, there needs to be some level of marrying it with the modernity so that we can at least have, we could save at least some lives.
All right, let's leave it there. Let's hopefully start those debates everywhere in the country. It's time for another quick ad break, and when we return, South African media urged not to use the word xenophobia. Do stay tuned for more after the break.
in your hands to make of our world a better one for all.
From humble beginnings, this selfless icon altered the history of the world, freed a country, and united a nation. He taught us humility and forgiveness. To the world, he is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. But to us, he is simply Tata Madiba.
This is Media Monitor. Welcome back. Let's now have a look at the stories of the week that was. The commuting service is under the spotlight. In Gauteng, competition between meter taxis and Uber drivers led to acts of intimidation and violence. Now, meter taxi operators claim that their fares are regulated while Ubers are not. Department of Transport is seeking ways to resolve the matter. Very interesting. It seems there's an intense competition in the transport industry. Currently, what do you make of the strife between Uber and meter taxi operators? Chaba, let's start with you.
It's a typical situation where you have your traditional meter taxis dealing with a company that is using an application or using modern technology, for that matter, to drive its business. The question perhaps we should be asking is, isn't it time that our traditional meter taxis should be using the same modern technology that is freely available actually to everyone? In South Africa, nearly everyone has a cell phone. So can't we use that? But again, it's a simplistic way of looking at it. There are issues at stake, like the regulation, for example. You can't dismiss the meter taxi drivers as being like irrational when they talk about the regulation and not Uber being regulated.
All right, Chaba, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there now. I want to move on to the story. The Parliamentary Committee chairwoman appeals to SA media to refrain from using the word xenophobia because it sparks extreme hatred for foreign nationals. I want to hear your views here, Rulani.
I think in a lot of newsrooms, we always argue about when is it necessary to name a person's nationality, especially when they've been involved in crime, whether they are a victim of crime or whether they are alleged to be the criminal. So to a certain extent, she is right in saying that we have to be very cautious. Remember, before 1994, they would have a black man and a white man has been killed. This is how the news was written in South Africa. So I think we would need, as a country, as the media, to find a way of telling stories without feeling what would end up being xenophobic attacks. But then, when you have a situation where a Somali national's shop has been attacked by some people in Soweto, for example, and they are saying it's because he's selling cheaper goods, how do you work around such a story? I mean, you need to put it into a specific context, in a way that people should understand the importance of this. Whereas at the same time, we're trying to tell stories in a way that we're not saying to people, it means Somali nationals are all like this, or it means Nigerian people are like this. So it's a challenge to all of us in the media to find a new way of telling stories without fueling Because you must remember that people listen to the radio, people watch TV, they read newspapers.
Yes.
And when they wake up, their agenda for the day, to a certain extent, is influenced by what we feed their minds. So we have to try.
Rulani, please stop saying xenophobia. I now say that to you.
Yes,
all right.
we will. We will stop using the word xenophobia, and we will see how it helps for South Africans and foreign nationals to live together.
All right. Well, because we are Africa's news leader and we are broadcasting across the whole African continent, here's an update on continental and global news of the week. Expectations are high in Kenya as the country prepares to host United States President Barack Obama on Friday. Now, this will be the very first time Obama visits his native country as U.S. president. Entrepreneurs are expected to benefit from Obama's 3-day visit. As the country gears up for elections next year, tensions are high in Uganda as police arrested 2 rivals of President Yoweri Museveni and later released them. Former Prime Minister Amama Mbabazi and ex-leader of the Forum for Democratic Change, Kizza Besigye, were both arrested ahead of election campaigns. Well, coming up straight after this quick ad break, 20-year-old Proteas star becomes the second man in history to claim a hat-trick on international debut. We'll be back with a wrap of the show. Don't miss it. Media Monitor all over Africa. Do stay tuned.
It is in your hands to make of our world a better one for all.
From humble beginnings, this selfless icon altered the history of the world, freed a country, and united a nation. He taught us humility and forgiveness. To the world, he is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. But to us, he is simply Tata Madiba.
Welcome back to our final segment. Now, making his debut on the international stage, Kagiso Rabada was nothing short of impressive. The 20-year-old's hat-trick cemented his name in the history books. He sits at the very top of the list with the best ODI figures on debut. Let's take a look at his wicket-taking overs.
You don't, as a bowler, control that because... Oh, bowled in. Cross seam, more conventional. The balance was the problem. Oh, just short of... Oh, and a big big shot! Is he gone? He's gone! He's got it! Out again. Off the glove, is it? Yes, he's got him! 5 for Rabada on debut. Got him! 6 wickets for Rabada. And this has been seriously impressive.
What an impressive young man. Very quickly, Chaba, very quickly. What do you want to say?
Look, I mean, I follow a sport where I always swear that my blood is black and gold. But you cannot ignore the emergence of people like Kagiso Rabada, and you have Quinton de Kock, and you've got these 20-year-olds who do not care. They're just doing the game the way they want to do it.
Yes.
Now, you ask yourself, is the future of cricket safe? I would say certainly.
All right. With that, let's have a look now at some of the tweets that you've sent us at home in response to some of the discussions that we've had today in studio. Let's start with Cheryl Roberts. Says, big up to hashtag Judge Desai for the ruling. It's justice for the financially disadvantaged, struggling working class in relation to the Garnishee orders. There, Wandile Naiba says, not a single surgeon operating these illegal schools were jailed, whilst hundreds of innocent young people continue to die. Chaba mentioned something about having a surgeon to come to the mountain and actually assist with the initiation. Milase Mzamo says there is still a market for the metered taxis. Customers who don't like or have credit cards. All right, Milase, that's an interesting point there. Suraya says metered taxis must get with the program now. The people's choice is hashtag Uber. If you can't beat them, join them. You won't be sorry. Middleman says yes, no special treatment should be shown to Uber. They must join the taxi association just like any other taxi. Otherwise, it's war. Last but not least, let's see if we have one more tweet there. All right, we'll leave it there with your tweets. I just want to hear very briefly, let's start with you, Rulani. What do you think is going to be prominent in the news this week? We know Greece is definitely going to be, but right here at home.
COSATU's Special National Congress, which starts tomorrow, and we'll see what the TB Joshua, the coroner's report, which was released, what the victims' families will do, and what the church will do, because the coroner has suggested that the church should be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
So those are some of the stories that we'll be watching. Of course, Saturday is Mandela Day.
All right, Sichaba.
Well, I mean, Mandela Day is the big thing.
Absolutely.
As Rulani says, and you'll be... Actually, you have to be fundamentally stupid to ignore COSATU and whatever is going to happen to its Congress. And then thirdly, we'll just have to watch what Grace does, because it will have an impact on our own economy. If you look at the standoff last week and the meltdown in China, it saw the rand actually crashing to its lowest levels in months. Now, we cannot wish that away. We are a developing country, and whatever happens to us, unfortunately, gets influenced by things that we don't have any control over.
All right. Thank you so much to my media experts today for joining us, Ms. Rulani Baloyi and Mr. Sichaba Gankosi. Our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Please always remember that your contributions and suggestions are highly valued. To get in touch with us, you can email us any suggestions. Our email address is mediamonitor@sabc.co.za. We're also available on Facebook. Find us on www.facebook.com/mediamonitor and tick like next to our page. You can very well find us on Twitter @SAMediaMonitor. Our repeat broadcast is at 2 a.m. But if you can't wait, www.youtube.com/SABC News is where you'll find us. Yes, we've got you covered across all media platforms. And for all our online updates, our website is www.sabc.co.za/news to get more info on the stories on our info boards today. Now, on the 18th of July is Tata Madiba's birthday. The United Nations declared this day as International Mandela Day. Around the world, people are gearing up to celebrate Mandela Day. And here at home, Brand South Africa and the Nelson Mandela Foundation are motivating citizens to do their bit under the theme, Play Your Part for Madiba. The Nelson Mandela Center of Memory held a celebration for children earlier this week. For myself, Alicia Jali, my experts, the QTIV team, have yourself a blessed Sunday. Goodbye.